All right. We are at the top of the hour. Welcome, everybody, to Greater Life, Greater Impact. I'm Janet. I am a quantum healing practitioner. And what I do is I help take people to the uncharted waters of who they really are for healing, for spiritual awakening, and for personal transformation. All this year for 2023, we're going to be talking about spiritual sovereignty and what that means to be a sovereign being. That's kind of it's kind of a word that most people don't use very often, but if you think about sovereignty in the aspect of governments and geography, right? What does it mean to be a sovereign nation? It means that you have autonomy. It means that as a sovereign nation, people don't encroach upon your borders and you don't encroach upon theirs unless, unless you've been encroached upon, right? I don't know that I would say that our country at this point is completely a sovereign nation. I think that at one point it was. But when I'm talking about sovereignty as an individual human being, I want you to think about being the king or queen of your own kingdom. And what would that look like? Well, how would you act? What would you look like? How would it feel to be you as the king or queen of your own kingdom? Do you allow other entities or countries to come in and invade your kingdom? Do you rule your kingdom with love and compassion and equity, equality, I should say? Do you respect other people's boundaries and borders? And do you also command that respect of your own self? Do you stand with confidence? And I use the word autonomy a lot, but do you stand in resoluteness, knowing who you are and what you're about? So these are all questions that I want to bring into the conversation today, because today, this is episode number 9 for our sovereignty series. And we're talking today all about accessing your inner GPS. And that is a huge, I think, a pivotal key to sovereignty and autonomy as not just a spiritual being, but also a mortal, intellectual, and physical being as well. There are many different aspects to us: the mental, the emotional, the physical, the spiritual, the quantum aspects to you. And so in my mind, as I do this work and as I work with many of you guys, and we've been doing your inner work together, I feel like your greatest superpower is your higher self, is learning how to tap into that inner GPS, that inner knowing, the divine infinite intelligence within you. I call that your divine identity, your eternal identity. So because I actually happen to believe in the idea or the concept that we've had many mortalities, that this isn't just the first body, this isn't just the first rodeo. And so if you look at it from that vantage point, then you know that your body is not the sum total of your identity. It's a robe of material that you wear as you're in this 3D world, and we have to have something that we can use to interface with the 3D world. But, you know, according to Eastern Indian philosophy, they believe that everything you see in the material world, in this 3D density, as material, such as your body, the trees, the rocks, the plants, anything that you see in the world, is just material matter experiencing an activity. It's just going through an activity, right? And that's what your body is. Your body is an activity, but your body is not the sum total of your identity. That's something that goes a lot deeper. That is what I like to refer to as your quantum identity, your divine identity. So, in other words, if you were to lay this body down today and die right in this moment, there's a part of you that would continue to be conscious and aware and still having thoughts and still able to communicate, still able to perceive, still able to learn and grow and move about the universe. That is truth. In fact, science now has a million ways to show that that's an absolute reality, that you don't just disappear and go into nothingness after you lay a physical moral body down. So if that is true, then have you ever wondered, have you ever questioned who is doing the looking through these two eye holes? Who's in here? Who am I? Who is this being that is inhabiting this physical body, that's giving the body this activity to be in? Who is that? Who are you? Who am I? So if you have a piece of paper and your little notebook, I would invite you to write down at the top of that paper, who am I? Who am I? Who am I physically? As a body, as a personality, as a mind, as an ego? Who am I mentally? As a construct of a whole big bundle of beliefs and values and ideas? Who am I mentally? And then make another column. Who am I spiritually? As a consciousness, as a divine identity. Who am I in that light? Who am I? We already talked about physically. As a physical body, what does my body look like? How do I show myself in the world? How do I show up in the world as a physical body? I'm here to tell you that you aren't just that one thing. You aren't just the body. You aren't just your beliefs. You aren't just your memories. And you are not just the programming that you've bought into in this world. You're more than that. So everything has intelligence. Everything has divine intelligence. Even this plastic chair that I'm sitting on or sitting against has intelligence. This container that's sitting up on my shelf, that's a big hunk of metal, that is made of material that has intelligence. The chemicals that spill out into the atmosphere as a result of trains derailing and colliding and putting smoke out into the air, and toxins and poisons and chemicals and the poisons in your food and all those things. Those things, right down to the smallest minute level, have intelligence. So that's what I want to focus on today. That's your inner GPS system, is divine infinite intelligence. That divine infinite intelligence within you, within this body that's animating your body, has all the answers to all the questions that you've ever wondered about or needed to know about. It has all the solutions to all of your problems, because it knows, that part of you knows how you created the problem in the first place. So I feel like this is really one of the most important classes that we could ever do in our sovereignty series, because until you understand and comprehend the nature of yourself, you're never going to comprehend the nature of God, and vice versa. Till you comprehend the nature of God as a being, if you do believe that God is a being, a creative being, and that there is a being that created all things, including you, then what does that look like in reference to who you are? So that reminds me of a quote. Some of you are LDS, the LDS faith, and you know who Joseph Smith is. If you don't, that's okay. But he gave a really famous sermon before he died called the King Follett Sermon. I recommend reading it. It's an interesting sermon. And he does talk deeply about the nature of God and the nature of self and the nature of self-identity and who you are and who you've been and who you continue to be. But he says, if men do not comprehend the character of God, they do not comprehend themselves. I find that profound. And also, just by chance, I was on Facebook this morning just before coming on, and somebody had something on their feed, and I thought this was a really great quote. It's by Leonardo da Vinci, and he says, if you find from your experience that something is a fact, and it contradicts what some authority has written down, then you must abandon the authority and base your reasoning on your findings. You must learn to trust your own inner GPS, because that's where absolute truth lives for you. That's where, that's the only place you're ever going to be able to access absolute divine intelligence and divine truth, is within you. So you need to come to know yourself. You need to come to know how to connect with your higher self. That inner higher wisdom. And we are going to go into a meditation today that hopefully will help you guys with that, to help you navigate. But I feel like the most important thing we could ever learn or ever do in this lifetime is learn the true identity of who you really are on a spirit level, on an infinite level, and develop a system for how to connect with that, how to read it, how to discern it, and learn to trust it no matter what. Not just only trusting it, but following it, acting in alignment with that truth that bubbles up inside of you. I think I made a post earlier this week on truth, and because I've been pondering a lot about, people keep talking to me about, what is truth? Where does truth come from? Who gets to decide? Who gets to discern whether this truth is right or that truth is right? Because both people are in these different camps, and they're fighting against each other and contending with one another because this person thinks they're right and that group thinks they're right. And so they butt heads and they fight over it. And I find that fascinating, because for me personally, in my life, what I used to think was absolute truth for me, I used to stand on this hill and stake my flag in it and say, this is absolute truth and I'll defend it till my death. But as I have evolved and as I have expanded my consciousness over the years, my perception, my vantage point, my perception of truth, the way that I see things has drastically shifted. And I can't really speak in absolutes anymore, because I can't say, who am I to say that anything is absolute when tomorrow I might see things from a completely different vantage point and change my mind about how I've perceived truth. So while I do believe there is absolute truth, I don't believe we have the ability as mortals necessarily to perceive that absolute truth perfectly yet. I think that that's where we're headed. I think that as we continue to expand our consciousness and allow ourselves to be open and to evolve and see things from lots of different angles and discern things in many different ways, I think that that is the trajectory that we're on as human beings, is that at some point we will be able to discern absolute truth. And how? How will we do that? By tapping in to your divine, infinite, eternal identity. That part of you is the same yesterday, today, and forever, just like God. Imagine that. There's a part of you deep within you. When you go inside your body, you take your awareness in there and you really learn to connect with your higher self. That part of you is the same yesterday, today, and forever. It's unchanging, because that part of you is divine, infinite, eternal intelligence. What is infinite? Type into the chat, give me some ideas how you guys feel about what infinity means to you. What does infinity actually even mean? And if there is a part of you that is infinite, what does that mean for you? Alicia says, limitless. Thank you. Perfect. Give me other adjectives as you guys think of them. What does infinity mean to you? And as you expand your consciousness, how has your perception of truth changed? Loretta says, without end. Someone else says, will never come to an end. Yeah. Yeah, think about that. Tammy says, greatness, not smallness. Oh, perfect. Shauna says, I see the infinity symbol going around and around, expanding and growing. Yes. Do you know that that's how light travels, is electromagnetic waves that are constantly intersecting and traveling away, and intersecting, traveling away. They're coming together, going apart, coming together, and they travel, those light waves travel out like that infinitely, and they never end. Light never ceases to exist. Anne says boundless and endless. Meryl says eternal progression. Yeah. Improvement and progression have one eternal round. Think about that. So if that's true, then on some level, deep inside of you, the infinite aspects of the divine intelligence within you, on some level, there is no end to you. There is no such thing as death. There is no such thing that can kill or destroy your consciousness. Nothing can kill or destroy that. Just like nothing can kill or destroy energy. Energy is infinite. It can be changed. It can be manipulated. It can evolve into different things and be one thing today and something else tomorrow. But so can matter. The material that makes up your physical body has been around for eons, which is billions of years. That material that makes up your physical body is not just only yours. It's not only just been your body. It's probably been the bodies of other things and animals and trees and rocks and stones and plants and who knows what. Who the heck knows what the material in your body, what experiences and activities the material in your body has memory of. Think about that. Think about every single atom and particle and cell in your body. What experiences, what activities have they been through over the billions of years? And not just on this planet, but maybe from other worlds. So I want you to really consider the infinite eternal nature of you. That is your divine infinite identity. That is your inner GPS. That part of you that's the same yesterday, today, and forever has a knowing that surpasses all understanding. So consider that as you sit in your chair today and listen to these words and participate in our class. As you sit in your chair, I really want you to ponder on who is in here. Who is the infinite, eternal aspect of me? These are wonderful opportunities to awaken, to expand our consciousness, to participate in the shifts that are happening on the planet right now. If you don't see that there are massive shifts happening on our planet right now, there's a good chance you're very asleep because the world is changing. Our view of truth is changing as new truths kind of come to the surface and are brought to light. The way that we once used to operate, the way that we once used to see things are changing. In fact, even more than that, as we as we as individuals learn to stand more sovereign in our spiritual autonomy as sovereign beings, and we expand our own consciousness individually and also collectively, we start to wake up to nefarious things that have been playing out on this planet for centuries. And we start scratching our heads going, that's not true for me anymore. I don't buy into that anymore. Or maybe my spirit self is telling me that what I'm witnessing is not necessarily what's being told to me. So learning to listen to that inner wisdom within you will always steer you and guide you towards your highest will. Always. It will never not do that. What is it that yanks us out of that internal GPS, that internal connection with our highest will? What yanks us out of that? What are your thoughts, you guys? You can unmute your mics and share if you want, or just type it into the chat. But what yanks you out of connection with your higher self?
Fear.
Fear. Yes. Fear is a big one. Anything else?
So I just wanted to share, Janet, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for me, it's our thinking mind, right? As soon as we shift from heart, from that space deep within us, from that source, and we go into our thinking mind, then we are catapulted out of that space and into our outer world. And that's where we get trapped, you know, when we stay in our thinking mind constantly. I feel that's what moves us out of that space.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. I agree with you on that. I do also agree. I also believe that we need our thinking mind, right? We do. We don't have to just completely annihilate our egos and our intellects, but we do need to learn which aspects of us are better suited for navigating and for guiding and for gaining truth and wisdom, as opposed to just knowledge and intellect, because they're both very, very different things. But I do believe that they go together. Somebody else says what yanks us out of our higher self is, someone else says tradition. Karen says fear. Loretta says negative thoughts and feelings. Yes. Lisa says heart blocks. Interesting. That's interesting. So yeah, oftentimes as we go through trauma and drama in the world and we get our feelings hurt by experiences that happen to us, maybe we feel betrayed or abandoned, or we go through abuse, and those are legitimate experiences, right? For sure. But it often causes us to put up these walls to protect ourselves. And when you put up a wall, now you're veiled, now you're filtered, now you're blocked from expansive consciousness. McKenna says, buying into the idea that how we see things are how things are and will always be. Absolutely. We don't have to buy into the programming that's been here just because our ancestors bought into that programming, whatever it was. It doesn't matter what even it is, whether it came from books or society or culture or tradition or whatever it is. We don't have to always just get, give in to go along. We don't have to just buy in because that's how it's always been done. We can question things, we can ask questions, we can listen to our inner intelligence and our inner wisdom and be brave enough and bold enough to be guided by that stuff. And I believe too that as you learn to tap into this inner GPS, you're tapping into the intelligence of all that is. You're tapping into the creator of all that is. And you're going to learn that today as we go through our connecting meditation. Meryl says, too many obligations, inventory to care for, too busy. Yeah, busyness is a huge robber of consciousness, expanded consciousness. And isn't it interesting that certain things in certain aspects of our culture and community, society, religion, whatever it might be, have kind of pigeonholed us into being overly busy so that they can control the narrative, so that they can get you to comply, so that they can get you to believe that if you just obey what we tell you to do, you'll be safe. And that pops up in cultures all over the world. It pops up everywhere in regards to authoritarian systems that want to control and manipulate you. They don't get to do that. And especially as you learn to wake up and expand your consciousness, you start to realize, oh, I don't necessarily have to buy into that program anymore. I can go over here and have a new understanding and a new perspective, and I can see things in a different way, and that's okay. And I'm not unsafe just because I climbed out of this box or that box. Tammy says other people's beliefs and ideas. Yeah, programming. Minnie says belief often, yes. False, limiting, negative beliefs that you have about yourself and that you have about the world will definitely yank you out of connection with your higher self. Pammy says low self-worth. Bingo, yes. When you have a low self-worth and you think that you're not enough, you're not pretty enough, smart enough, funny enough, intelligent enough, whatever enough, rich enough, whatever, it diminishes that divine, internal, eternal identity that you have already going on that is everything that you think you are trying to attain. You already are that on some level. So it's really just a matter of waking up to that and acknowledging that you are all the things that you think you're looking for. If you think you need to get a million certifications or titles behind your name or advance up the ranks in education, academia, the workforce, just so that you can feel important, you don't need those things to feel important. You just need to go within, tap into your higher self, and know that you already are important. You already are all of the important that you ever dreamed of. You just need to learn how to access that. It doesn't mean that learning stuff isn't valuable, and it doesn't mean that having a career isn't valuable. I'm not saying that. But if you're pursuing those things, material things and validation type of things in your life, you'll lose yourself in the quest to find yourself, because that's not where you are. You don't exist in the material world. You exist beyond the material world, deep within this material body. You will never find yourself anywhere out there, anything external. You're never going to find it, because that's not where you are. Technically. I mean, you're going to discover today that you actually are everything in your external world, because there's oneness, right? But as you learn to tap into the inner, higher aspects of yourself, and you expand that consciousness, you expand yourself out into the universe and become the container of the universe. You start to recognize and realize, okay, I am that external world that I thought. Oftentimes what happens to us is we get up into the ego and we think that the external world, people, experiences, objects, materials, things, we think that that needs to gift us the feeling of I'm enough, or I'm safe, or I'm important, or I'm loved, or I'm respected, or I'm valued, right? We think that the things in our external world are supposed to gift us those feelings, but that's not truth. The feelings are already an integral part of who you are. It's a matter of going within, expanding out, and recognizing that everything in the world, to some degree, is already one with you. And you're already one with everything in the universe. Okay. Karen says blocks in parts of our body that keep us sick. Yes, that can definitely disconnect you from your higher self. Definitely. Your true, eternal, infinite identity. I have a story to share, and I've shared it before. And if you've heard it before, I'm sorry to be redundant, but after my mother passed away, she came to me in a vision. She stood at the foot of my bed, and as I beheld her with my spiritual eyes, I could see her in my mind's eye. And it was very crystal clear. There was no mistaking that that's who it was. I could feel her presence. I could see the familiarity in her eyes, and I knew it was her. And as I communicated with her, we didn't even use language. It was just this soul to soul communication. And one of my questions for her was, like, as I saw her in this divine state, it was the one of the most beautiful things. Even to this day, I can't hardly describe it because there aren't words in any fallen language that could possibly give you the picture of what I viewed when I laid eyes on this divine being. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever laid eyes on. It took my breath away. And she did not look like her physical body, but I knew it was my mother. And I just sat there with my jaw to the floor going, "Mom, is that you?" And she just pointed to herself going, look, it's me. And I wondered, my question in my mind was, I wonder if she ever knew that about herself, if she ever had opportunity to connect with herself in that way when she lived in a mortal body. And the answer that came back was no. She never knew, not till after she left the body. And then my next thought was, that's tragedy. That is tragic that a human being can go 80 plus years of living on this planet and never really know themselves. Never really know this divine, amazing, beautiful, glorious, infinite identity that they have. That's tragic. And so that was the moment in my life where I decided I'm going to devote the rest of my life to helping individual people connect with that and to know that, and not just know it, but have opportunity to see it in their mind's eye, how divine and awesome and amazing you really are. Every human deserves that experience. You deserve to know who you really are. You do. And the world deserves to know that part of you as well, because look at all of the value that you bring to humanity when you step in fully to that part of yourself. And I personally, this is my personal belief, I believe that that's what the gods do. People who we think are gods, that's all they're doing. They're just a few steps ahead of you on the path of learning how to connect to the divine identity and being there always and not being blocked by sickness and self-worth and negative beliefs and obligations and busyness and what else was there? Authoritarian beliefs and heart walls and negative thoughts and feelings and tradition and material things and all of those things. The thing that makes gods different than you, lies of others, right? How often has someone deceived you or told a lie about you or said something unkind towards you and you bought in? How often has that happened? So if you want to not be misled by the lies and the deception that is what it is, then you have to be willing to tap into your eternal identity. Anne says the quantum field is also limitless. Yeah, I like to call the quantum field the divine realm of the atonement. The atonement is at one-ment. The divine realm of the atonement is the quantum field, which allows you to become one with God's, with the creator of all that is. Anne says, to know thyself is the beginning of wisdom. Yes, it truly is. Could there be a more important pursuit than to come to know yourself? in all ways. And I think one of the reasons why we opted to come to a world such as this, to a planet like this, where that was filled with deception and darkness and evil and lies and programming and conditioning and mind control and all the things that we're subject to here, I think we wanted the opportunity to really be pushed to the limits of who we aren't in order for us to have the challenge to discover and rediscover who we really are and to stand resolute in that. Karen says, I bought into not enough all my life. Yeah. I think most of us did that. I think that is the programming of those who seek to control, those who seek the authority, those who seek to insert themselves between you and your connection with the divine, or your connection with God, or even your connection with yourself. The people that try to insert themselves in there and control the narrative and control you and tell you that if you receive information from this divine source, which is your heart, your spirit, your soul, if you receive information from that place and it doesn't align with us, then you're wrong. I would love to invite you to let go of that belief. That belief is not true. How you access truth, divine truth, absolute truth, is by going within, learning how to trust what your heart is telling you, what your soul is telling you, and trusting that no matter what other people say, even if other people say, you're wrong, I'm the authority on this, I'm the authority on all absolute truth, until I say so, you're not right? Like, Angela says, I would rather be wrong in my truth than right in another's deception. That's very wise. And what is wrong? What is right? What is wrong? What even is that? Who decides? What human has the right to control all the rest of human life and say, I'm the authority on all truth. I'm the authority on what's right or wrong. y'all should follow me because I'm the authority. Who decides what's right and wrong for you? I believe that's a personal decision that has to be made between you and yourself and God. McKenna says, what is your advice for standing strong in your truth without letting pride in? Ooh, that's beautiful. It takes practice. I think it does. I think there needs to be a daily practice where you can learn how to go within, tap into your higher self on a regular basis and get very familiar with what your inner GPS feels like and sounds like. As you do that, I just had one of the most amazing conversations with my mentor. His name is Joshua this morning, and he says something that always sticks in my head, and that is that the answers are all inside. There's nothing outside of you. There is no device, there is no chemical, there is no herb, there is no oil, there is no food that is more powerful than the internal GPS inside of you that has all of the answers. Are those things helpful? Are things in the material world helpful? Yes. Is it helpful to support your body with oils and foods and herbs and exercise and the things that can really serve and support? Yes, those things are beneficial. They are. But they are not the end all be all to your inner genius and your inner capabilities of resolving what's writing the code for your sickness and your illness and your problems and your lack and limitation. So standing strong in your truth without letting pride get in my mind, McKenna, that's a really great question. In my mind, it requires having the self-discipline enough to set aside time every day to really just go inside Go into the stillness. Go within. Learn to expand your consciousness out. Charisse, go ahead. I'd love to hear from you.
I think being able to stand in your truth also requires you to be able to see that truth is just a perception. So yes, you can stand firm in your beliefs, and that's a beautiful thing, but realizing that where those beliefs come from, and that if you set the hands of your clock back 5 minutes, so you think that your perception of time is different, that 5 minutes ahead or 5 minutes past, then is that really the truth? Not really. You've tricked your brain
Right. That's
to
a good
see
analogy.
5 minutes previous, and so you think, oh, I'm going to be late. If I don't get going, I'm going to be late. So that is your perception of time. But does it mean that it is true? No, it
Right. And
doesn't.
the bigger question is, what is time? What does that
Yeah,
even mean?
time doesn't actually exist in this realm. We need it. We need it so we can get to our job on time, and
It's a
but
construct of the mind.
it really is. It doesn't exist in other realms. So just so being, I think, more fluid with your perception of truth will help you to stay grounded in your truth, and just seeing, and I think even giving other people the grace that everybody has a different set of beliefs, and that's okay. It's okay if they choose to follow their path and make decisions, and who are we to judge their decisions because we know absolute truth? Well, it's kind of a load of shit. It's just it that's a belief in itself. They're on their own path, they're on their own journey. Let them choose, let them decide. Don't judge them.
Yeah.
That's their learning, that's their choice.
Yeah.
Allow them to flow.
Yeah. And they're right where they're supposed to be, doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. We all are on our individual journeys right where we're supposed to be. When I first started to wake up, go through the awakening process, and I still feel like I'm on that journey. It's an ongoing process. I used to think, oh my gosh, we've been lied to. And I need to call this out, and I need to point, hey, everybody over there, come over here, because that boat over there is lying to you and controlling you. And you should come over here because this is where the truth really is. And I'm less apt to stand on those hills and stake my claim anymore, because what you said earlier, Charisse, is that it's all just a perception. And who's to say that my perception won't shift again tomorrow, and I'll have a different belief about this hill that I'm standing on right now, right? And so I think giving yourself the grace and giving other people the grace to just let people be where they are in their journey and in their understanding, and that's meaningful for them, and it's right for them wherever they are. But to just hold space for other humans and just love them. Okay, we have a couple of additional comments here coming through. Lisa says, going within each day, is that like the meditation referenced in the Inner Peace Facebook group? I don't know what the Inner Peace Facebook group is, so I don't know if I can answer that. I'm going to take you through a meditation right now, actually, and so you'll be able to experience going within. You'll be able to experience just the feeling, the process of expanding your awareness out a little bit so that you can tap into that divine inner intelligence. Shauna says, I've been having a hard time with people close to me being triggered and allowing them the space to operate in a way I previously operated. Yes, that is a difficult thing. And it is like, who said it? Was it McKenna who asked about how do we stand in our truth and let go of pride? It has a lot to do with letting go of expectation, letting go of your perception, letting go what you think, where you think other people should be standing. Just let them stand where they are and love them anyways. Minnie says, there's a good pride and a bad pride. I don't think there is anything wrong with being proud of the things that we've accomplished. I'm proud that I've overcome a lot of lies I tapped into. Awesome. So yes, you can be proud and grateful that you have awakened and expanded your consciousness to new truths. And maybe it's not that we've all been lied to. It's just that we've had different levels or different degrees of perception, as Charisse was talking about earlier. And as we grow, as we ascend, as we overcome the lower level world, or this 3D world that we're in, and we start stepping into higher levels of consciousness and ascending into higher dimensions of being, it's that we see truth from a different vantage point. It's not maybe necessarily that we've all been deceived, although there is some of that that goes on. Karen says, I'm there. I feel that I have exposed the lies. Excuse me. Okay. Yes, we're going to go into a meditation right now. Before we actually do that, I want to do one with you guys. And then if there's time, we only have 15 minutes. If there's time, then I'm going to turn some time over to Anne to just kind of guide you within and take you through a little bit, if that's okay. Anne, maybe just like 5 minutes worth. Okay, yes, she says yes. Okay, awesome. I looked up, a scripture came to my mind this morning, and I looked it up in the Bible. It's John 1:5, and it's the one where it talks about in him, meaning Christ or God, in him was the life and the light of all men. So what does that mean? In him was the life and the light of all men. And the light shineth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehendeth it not. So for me, what that means is people who are not tapped into high levels of light, maybe they're tapped into lower levels of light within themselves. It's difficult for people tapped into lower levels of light to access the consciousness and the awareness and the comprehension of a being who is exposed to greater degrees of truth and greater degrees of light. There's a gap there. So the darkness, which is about deception and lies and concealing truth, beings who dwell in that space cannot comprehend what's happening in higher levels or higher degrees of light. So as you learn to go in within and tap into your higher self and learn to use that as your own inner GPS and use it as a guiding system to help you with healing, to help you change what's happening with material matter in your life, it can be life-changing. So your inner being will always tell you the truth. Always, always, always. And so precisely that it will tell you the truth in the way that you need to hear it based on what you're ready for next, based on where you're at in your journey. I want to read to you something. I've referenced this book before. It's just a really fascinating book that I read from time to time called The Mentana Archives. It's an ancient record by indigenous Indians in the North American continent. And some people found this ancient record and hired linguists to translate it. And so they have. And there's interesting wisdom in here. So the one phrase that I want to share with you guys is, it talks about faith and how faith is the power to heal, to transform, to create miracles, to change our outer world. If we don't like the way our outer world is expanding, not expanding, but manifesting, then we have to change our perceptions and our beliefs. And faith is one way that we can absolutely access that. And what they say in here is Now, faith is more than a belief. It is faith, or that power which moves upon the deep and causes it to come together and perform the will of the Father, or the highest will. It was through the exercise of faith that the very matter of the universe was created. So if the very matter of the universe was created through the power of faith and the exercising of faith, what does that mean to us? Because if we can tap into what that means, we can change how material matter manifests itself in this world. If you don't like the toxic chemicals that are being puffed out into your universe and into the sky, into the atmosphere, there are ways through higher levels of consciousness that you can rewrite the code to what is assigning meaning to those material particles in the world, in your body, in the atmosphere, in the world around you, and in the universe. And it is faith is the key to that. So let me finish reading on this, because I think this is really important. The matter we all have in common. We all have the same material in common. Wherefore, when that same faith is exercised, it is recognized by that matter. This is why one may be moved upon by the Spirit to do a certain thing. And if one is obedient to that commandment or that prompting, a miracle takes place. Is it done by the faithfulness of the individual? No. Is it done by the power that resides in the individual? No. Not one of us has more power than another. The miracle takes place because the substance is moved upon by that same power by which it was brought into being in the first instance. So when you move upon material matter with your faith, your consciousness, your beliefs, your spiritual nature, you literally can change material matter. Okay, we're going to go into a meditation right now. Yes, faith is power. They did not hire linguists to translate the Nemanhah record. It was translated by descendants of the writers. Oh, okay, interesting. This is their family record, only one if the translators is still alive. Thank you for enlightening me on that. I appreciate that. Okay, so what I want you guys to do first and foremost is go ahead and get centered. Take a big breath in, take a big breath out. Breathe in through your nose, breathe out through your mouth. And as you breathe out, can you just drop your shoulders a little bit? And can you sink down into your body? Take your attention and your awareness and just go within. Let's picture your center or your midline as a beam of light that goes from the top of your head down to the base of the spine, down through your hips, your legs, and your feet, down into the earth. That's your midline. So I want you to think about your center. Let's put your awareness on any given point on your center that feels the most stable and resolute to you. Is it in your heart? Is it below your heart? Is it at the base of the spine? Is it below the base of the spine? Just put some focus on your center. Breathe in through your nose, breathe out through your mouth, and just drop down into the foundation of your soul right now in your center. Breathe in, breathe out, let go. I want to invite you to let go of tension, letting go of, if there's tension in your shoulders or your face or your throat, can you let that go? Could you give your body permission to just surrender to your highest self? Could you give your body permission to just soften, surrender, and to fall into the foundation of your soul by putting awareness in there? And breathe. Allow that breath to move your body. Let your spirit breathe you. Dropping down, down. Go deeper. Go deeper inside. Go deeper down. Go to the depths of your soul. My favorite spot is the base of the spine because I do feel that is a connecting point for your higher self. I feel there's one in the heart, there's one below the heart, there's one under your feet. Find the one that feels most connected to you. Where does it feel most stable and grounded and rooted? And now, as you breathe, continue to relax your tongue, your throat, your jaw. Drop your shoulders. Continue to allow your awareness to be inside, anywhere you choose. And the next step is, I want to invite you to expand out. I want to invite you, just like if you stepped into the center of the sun and the sun stepped into the center of you, what does that feel like? To have all these millions and billions of tendrils of light going out in front of you and behind you and above and below. Just notice that. See if you can fill up the room right now with your consciousness, your presence, your essence. If your body followed suit and all the tiny little atoms and subatomic particles of your body spread out and filled up the room and drifted on out into the universe, what would that feel like if all the particles of you expanded? Now, let's call your essence light. Let's call it light. I'm going to read that quote, that scripture again. The life in him was the life and the light of all men. In him. So in you is the life and the light of all men. And the light shineth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehendeth it not. So just allow your light now within to pierce the darkness, going out bigger. With every breath, I want you to relax, let go of tension, and let your light get bigger and brighter. And can you allow your light to get bigger and brighter than that? Now, where does your light end and God's light begin? Just notice. The reality is it doesn't. There is no beginning or ending. There is no, this is the end of my energy and the beginning of their energy. There is oneness. There is interconnection. There is integration. Just like when you ask the question, where does the air in the kitchen end and the air in the living room begin? It doesn't. The house is the container and the air is everywhere. The universe is the container and your light and the light of all men is everywhere. It's everywhere. The light of God is everywhere. The consciousness of God is everywhere. The consciousness of you is everywhere. I want you to feel that oneness. What does that feel like to be in your body, spread out to the degree that your presence now is the container of the universe? Feel that oneness. So wisdom, answers, healing comes from this space. Wisdom, answers, healing comes from this space. This is the space of divine, infinite atonement at one-ment. This is the space of divine intelligence. This is the space of spontaneous healing. Because really, spontaneous healing is just divine intelligence doing its job in your body. This is that space where those things happen. So I want you to think of one thing in your life, one question, one concern, one problem that you have. Maybe it's an anxiety or a fear. Maybe you need some guidance on something. Pick one thing. Think about it in this moment, in your meditation. Just think about it. Now, ask through your higher inner GPS, through the oneness, ask oneness or God. Basically, that's what you're doing. You're asking God, what's the answer? And write it down. What's the truth? What is needed? What is wanted? If there was ever a more powerful question than that, I can't think of one. What is wanted? What does your soul want? What do you want? When you come to know what you want, now you have direction. And when you move in that direction by choosing and by acting on the guidance that's bubbling up inside of you, now you have momentum. Okay. This is how you tap in. Do it every day. Go within, go into that stillness, calm your body down. Calm your body down. Let your body surrender to the inner quiet that's within you. Even if you have to sit there for an hour a day and just be quiet and just breathe and don't do anything. Notice what happens to you. Notice how you change. Notice how your thoughts begin to evolve. Notice how wisdom starts to bubble up. Notice how your gifts and your talents start to show up. And they're born from that place. You become more wise, more intelligent, more purpose-filled, you're more tapped into your superpowers, and all of the doing that's supposed to happen in your life will just happen. The doing will be born out of your beingness. It comes from your being. It's intuitive. So if your being says, hey, go here, do that, have this conversation, do that thing, then do those things. But just know that you don't evolve, you don't expand your consciousness by the things you do. It's about who you be. Okay. Michelle says, just love him was the answer. Awesome. Isn't it amazing how clear the truth is in there when you're in oneness, when you're in connection? I'm going to turn some time over to Anne. I'm going to pin you to the video. Anne is also a healer. She teaches people meditation. She's a channeler, and she also does hypnotherapy and a myriad of other things. So I'm going to have you, Anne, if you would walk us through whatever comes to your mind in the moment based on where we're at. That would be awesome.
Wonderful. Yes. Thank you. That was great guidance. And we all talk about oneness, unity. And so I like personally to have little things that remind me on a daily basis, about that oneness. And so you can probably see a dream catcher hanging behind me. And the reason I like that, I carry a little tiny one in my purse so I can pull it out and remind myself, is because there's always a center. There's always that place to come back to. And yet it is all connected and has all these other spaces and holes, which reminds me that we are individuals, but yet we are one. And it also reminds me that when I am pulled and tugged into our outer world in many different directions and things become overwhelming, that I can just look at that and go, yes, come back to center, come back to center. And that's the key. And as you said earlier, which is my firm belief, is that being is so much more powerful than doing. So I would like to invite everyone to stay in that space that Janet just brought us into that quiet space. But if you can visualize it, great. If you can just feel it, if you can just know it, whatever works best for you, to truly notice and recognize and be in that space of oneness, in that center, because that is all there is. And we can give it many names, source, God, or your own higher awareness. It doesn't matter. That oneness, when we can truly connect to that center, to that oneness, that is when we are powerful. That is when we know our own truths. And even the truth, for the rest of the universe. But the most important thing is recognizing and knowing your truth, your path, your journey. So just take a moment and really be in that oneness. As I say it, I just feel that power within me expand. Because that oneness, that knowing, that being is the whole universe. It's everything. It's limitless. It's infinity. And that is what you, each one of you, have access to every single moment of your life. So really learn how to go to that place through meditation, through whatever it takes. And when you feel pulled in 20 different directions, when you feel overwhelmed, take a deep breath and come back to that center, to that oneness, to that space. So take a deep breath and open your eyes, knowing that you all have access to that. And just a reminder again, as I said, for me, because I'm so visual, I love carrying something that reminds me to come back to that oneness and to that center.
Mm-hmm.
Bless you all.
Thank you. Bless you. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate that.
Sure.
We've got Minnie who says, when I'm in that oneness, all my worries and trials are not as huge as they seem to be at other times. Good. So I'm going to leave you with this. Learn to make it a daily practice to be in oneness. If carrying essential oils or a stone or a dream catcher or like for me, I've showed you guys before that I painted a picture of my higher self, of how I felt like I saw that coming up, bubbling up in my conscious awareness. And every time I see that picture, I'm just, boom, I'm in that oneness space. Find a way to get there quickly so that you don't necessarily need 2 hours in a dark room to get there, but that you can go into that state of interconnectedness, oneness, into the divine infinite identity of your soul, because the truth is, the way you shine out into the grid of oneness is unique and divine and personal and special. Nobody shines the way that you do. You are a divine individual expression of the light. Yes, we are all the light, and we all have light within us. The light of all men is within us. But more importantly than that, how do you shine in an individual way? Don't let other people tell you what that is until you've checked in and determined for yourself what that looks like for you. Learn to trust it. And the only way to trust it is to take risks. Step out on the ledge and fall a few times. I think oftentimes we're so afraid of being deceived. We're afraid of getting things wrong. We're afraid of going against the grain. We're afraid of stepping outside of paradigms where everybody's the same. Everyone's doing things the same, talking the same, acting the same. We're afraid to step away from that and step outside of that because we don't want to be shamed or shunned by other people just because we're weird. You're not weird. You're unique. You're divine. You're individual. And the way that you shine in this world is unique to you. And the world deserves to know what that is. You deserve to know how awesome you are. Every human deserves to know how awesome you are. And you also deserve to know where to go to access all the answers, all the healing, all the levels of faith, the ways to exercise faith. How do you exercise faith? You act in alignment with where your heart is guiding you. That's the exercise of faith. And when you do, I'm going to reread this because it's so powerful, you guys. Faith is more than a belief. It is that power which moves upon the deep and causes it to come together and perform the will of the Father, which is the highest will, basically. If you want to act in alignment with the highest will and create miracles in your life and really, honestly, restructure and reorganize matter and material, we know of people who have used consciousness and beliefs and intentions to change the construct of water molecules. If people can do that to water molecules, they certainly can do that to toxins in our bodies, in our atmosphere, in our food, in our soil. There's so much fear around toxicity in the world, toxic beliefs, toxic people, toxic chemicals, toxic blah, blah, blah. People changing your DNA. We are not victims. We are much more powerful than we've ever been led to believe. And the power that you have within you is the power of the divine. It's the power of God to restructure and reconstruct material in order to command it to come back into alignment with divine order. You have that power within you to command matter and material to come back in and restructure and restructure and reconstruct DNA and molecules to come back into alignment with divine organized matter. You have that power inside of you. So use it. That's the power of oneness. And when you act from a place of pure intent in the power of oneness and act upon what you're given in that state of oneness, the answers will come, the miracles will come, the healing will come, the support will be provided. Everything that you think you need, you'll have access to, because it starts in here. Meryl says, what is the reference of that quote in the Mentana? It was Manti, chapter 4, page 170 on faith and healing. That whole chapter is on healing. If you have the book, I recommend go study it. This is how I've studied it. Like, there are notes and underlinings everywhere in this chapter because I just feel like the aspect of learning to tap into divine intelligence, which is you, acting upon that divine intelligence allows your conscious awareness to move upon the deep and command elements to come back into alignment with wholeness and divine order, so that the particles that you're working with or acting upon through your faith or through this process, they come back into alignment with wholeness because they remember the same energy, the same intention, which is love, that created them. Every material remembers that same power, that same force that created it. And it is looking for alignment with that wholeness. So all the material, all the cells, all the atoms, all the DNA in your body was once somewhere else. Eons and eons, billions and billions of years ago was once somewhere else. And it wants to respond to the voice of the creator of all that is. It wants to come back to the remembrance of its own wholeness. And that can happen in your body. It can happen in your bank account. It can happen in your relationships. It can happen in your economy. It can happen in your world. It can happen in the air around you. even when you are so desperately afraid that the world is collapsing and falling apart, you can still experience oneness and wholeness and divine order. And you should, because it feels amazing. Way better than fear. Shauna says the Nemanha record is an amazing book. I recommend it to everyone. Yes, there's a few people on here that have recommended it to me, actually. So with that being said, we are 14 minutes past the hour. I appreciate you guys being here. Come back to this and practice it. I would love for you to get to the place where you can tap into that oneness, that feeling of being in, being connected, being expanded in a very quick breath, to the degree that you can go, okay, I'm going to finish this breath in and this breath out. And by the time I breathe out, I will be at the base of my spine spread out. In, done. It's really just a matter of, where is your attention? Where is your awareness? Are you within, or are you focusing on everything outside of you and listening to all the noise and the mental chatter and the chaos that's out there? Can you pierce the darkness enough to be in a state that is so stable and so resolute and so powerful that you're sovereign in it? That's my desire. That's my desire. And I invite you to discover that for yourself as you practice these principles and play with it more and more. Have fun connecting with your inner GPS. Go in there, ask questions, be guided to the truth, act upon the truth to get momentum. Don't be afraid to be deceived. Don't be afraid to be misled. Don't be afraid to take risks. Learn to trust your inner GPS system, because that is how God communicates to you. And nobody has the right to insert themselves in between you and the divine. That's on you. All right, you take care, you guys. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll talk to you again next week. If you feel that private mentoring is something that would be beneficial to you, please feel free to reach out to me privately. I will post a link to my scheduling app in the description of this video down below. So watch for that as well if you feel like you would like to go deeper and more on an individual and personal basis, then we can definitely set that up. Take care, everybody. Bye.